Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rogue Media. My name is Alex Schlerf, and today I'm doing my review of Weapons, the most recent horror movie from Zach Cregger. Quick disclaimer before this episode goes on. Two things. Number one, my mic just decided to not work today. I plugged it in and it didn't show up. So hopefully by the next episode, I have either a new mic or this one is sorted out. But the audio quality might be a little bit worse and might not sound as good as a normal episode. So I apologize about that. I tested it and it should sound like all right. But anyway, if you notice a difference in the audio, that's why. Number two, you can probably hear my voice. I'm getting over a sickness and was losing my voice last week because of work. So, again, if the audio quality sounds bad and I sound a little bit worse, that's why I apologize for all that. But anyway, getting into my review for Weapons. So, I'm not a big horror movie guy, and I think I've kind of eased into the horror genre more recently, and I've kind of tried to ease myself into it because, 2, 3 years ago and anything before that, I used to get pretty scared of horror movies, to be honest, and I wouldn't really enjoy just the feeling of like being on edge the entire movie, and I just wouldn't be able to appreciate the storytelling going on. So I'd usually skip the newest horror movies and a lot of like the more popular horror movies that are out there I hadn't really seen. But more recently, I've been going to them a lot more in the theaters, and I kind of just like pushed myself off in the deep end and said I have to just watch these movies and eventually I'll get used to them. And by now, if you saw on the site, I did a review for Together last week, which is like a big body horror movie. I watched The Substance last year. Those are more body horror, but like in terms of like natural horror, I've seen a couple more like the Jordan Peele movies. And I don't know. I'm thinking of watching Hereditary soon, like stuff like this. Like I'm trying to get more into it, and with Weapons, this is another one where like you watch the trailer, you hear about the reviews and stuff, and it is a very classical horror, scary, creepy, all that stuff. So this isn't a typically a movie that I would like kind of be drawn to, but watching the trailer for this movie when the trailer came out, not too long ago, I was just so drawn by the concept. And if you don't know what the concept is, first off, I would go into this like I'm gonna do a non-spoiler and spoiler section of this episode, but if I were you, like, listen, I appreciate you clicking this video, and I hope you watch the non-spoiler section if you want to like kind of learn more about it. But I think you should go into this movie as blind as possible. And the thing about this movie that's great though is that even though for this episode the spoiler section might end up being longer than non-spoiler because the nature of the movie and a lot of the movie is a spoiler because the first 10 minutes of the movie are basically what you see in the trailers. Like there's shots that are from later in the movie, but you can't get the context of them. So watching the trailer, you get covered for the first 10 to 15 minutes, but after that, it's all in and you just don't know about the mystery, which is part of the intrigue of this movie is because so many movies these days, and I'm not like a big hater of movie trailers, but so many movies these days and movie trailers will give up like the first hour and 15 minutes of the movie, and only the ending is a bit more like inconspicuous. With this movie, with Weapons, I didn't watch the second trailer, but the first trailer literally gives away nothing to this movie. Like you get, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes and then you're into the story and into the mystery the whole time. And that was really enjoyable. But again, this non-spoiler section will be very basic and very like just focus on the characters and the actors and all that. But I would go into this movie if you've not seen it yet as blind as possible because you will be able to appreciate the experience more. I think even if you did get a couple of spoilers, you'd be okay. But I think going into this like I did, literally blind besides from the first trailer and like who's in the movie, I really was able to appreciate a lot more. So that's like to begin with, just to start off. I'm gonna do non-spoiler and a spoiler. I love this movie. I fell in love with this movie from basically, the first 10 to 15 minutes, it was a little bit slow because, like I said, it was kind of just repeating what was in the trailers. But once it got past, when it was doing that part, I was like, all right, I've already seen this. It's kind of getting boring. Once they got past that and into the really like big part of the story and each chunk of the story, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time and totally riveted by the mystery up until the end. Um, I gave this movie a 4.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and I think this is one of those movies where like talking about horror movies as someone who's not a huge fan of the genre, this is one of those horror movies that like for me is as close to a 5 star as it possibly could be. Like obviously we had Sinners earlier this year, which I gave a 5 star and I did multiple reviews on for the site, and that's one of the best movies of the decade so far, in my opinion. But that's like not really a horror. Like I think the elements that I enjoy about Sinners are a lot more like the music side of things and the acting and the story and the emotional heart. With Weapons, it is more of a traditional horror movie, even though it's focusing on the mystery a lot, and that is what I enjoy the most. And if you don't know what this movie is about, it is basically, and I guess I should have said this earlier, but it's basically at 2:17 a.m. on a random day, the entire classroom of kids from this one school teacher's classroom leave in the middle of the night and just disappear and they're lost. And the town and kind of the members of the town have to figure out and kind of find out what this mystery is and how they can, define this unsolvable mystery. And you start so the way this movie is told is in chapters. So you get chapters of each character that's integral to the plot. You have Julia Garner's character, you have Josh Brolin's character, you have Alden Ehrenreich's character, you have Benedict Wong's character, and there's one chapter towards the end which I'm not going to spoil because it would be kind of spoilery. But there's another chapter at the end which is kind of the final chapter, which is like where you really start to learn what's going on. And I think this storytelling tool, this way of telling the story, might have ostracized some people and felt that it was a little disconnected, like jumping back and forth. And a lot of the stories would end on like kind of a cliffhanger, and then you go to the next person and they would explain how one character has gotten to that point. And I think that might not work for people as much, but for me, like I love the way they told the story. And this movie, in a way, is like puzzle pieces coming together. It's like different parts of the story are connecting and they slowly build up. And for someone like me who loves mystery books, movies, shows, whatever, it really drew me and it really drew me in. And again, even with the horror elements that like I'm not totally sold on, just because not because they're bad, just because it's me and I'm not a huge horror fan. Everything in this really worked and clicked for me. And I think the only thing preventing this from a 5 star for me, by the way, I haven't rewatched this. I think if I went for a rewatch, there's a chance that I could give this a 5 star. That's happened to me before with a lot of movies. And I think that could happen, but I think the only reason it's not at a 5 right now is because that first like little like small section of the movie was really slow for me and like I wasn't drawn the entire time. And to be honest, watching those first like 15 20 minutes, I was like I'm not really liking this at all. Like I was like I don't know really what the hype is about. I'm not really enjoying this. But again, once it got into the really more intense part of the story and past that beginning, which is mostly just trailer stuff, that's probably partly my fault, not the movie's fault. But anyway, once it got past that kind of section of the early movie, I was just drawn and intrigued the entire time. And because of that storytelling format with the chapters and stuff, you need a cast of really talented actors. And it just happens that this cast is full of actors that I absolutely love. Not only because like almost all of them are like in the Marvel franchise, and I'm obviously a big Marvel fan, but also because I just really enjoyed these actors recently. Starting off with Julia Garner, who's not really like the main, there's not really a main character to this movie. And really, if there is, it's one of the one in the final chapter that I'm trying to stay away from because it's a spoiler. But she is kind of our focal point to begin the movie and kind of in each of these little chapters because she is a teacher that had the classroom of kids that run out. So there's a feeling of like guilt and despair from her specifically because even though none of the kids are like technically hers, she taught them and she feels like, did I have anything to do this? Are they doing this? And the town obviously resents her because of that. And she has to play, it's a very precise performance because she has to play a lot of emotion, but also determination to figure out this mystery for herself. There's a section of like the fact that she's kind of an alcoholic and she's recovering from that. This character comes into her life that used to be in her life and it's kind of like I think it was an ex-boyfriend or something of that nature, whether they had a fling or not, but that comes into play. And again, it does require a very eloquent and precise performance from her, and it was really good and really stand out. That's number one. Then moving on to Josh Brolin, who is just always on point with all of his performances, whether it's in Marvel or just in general. Again, another one where he is a father of one of the kids, so his performance requires a lot of emotion, a lot of shock, a lot of again desperation, which is really a big theme in this movie. And there's a lot of sequences with him where he really needs to be like a father figure and kind of try to work out this mystery by himself and try to I mean, there's a scene of him rewatching like the video of his kid because they caught it on the Ring camera and of their house. And there's like a scene where he's just rewatching the clip over and over again. Like he's just trying to find anything that he can to solve this mystery. Great performance from him as well. Alden Ehrenreich, I don't think I mentioned him in my Letterboxd review, but um, he probably had like the least to do out of all of them. But once his story, first off, his story is hilarious, and I'm gonna get more into like the humor and how that's a positive later on. But his particular chapter is so funny, and I think once you get into the more tense, like towards the end of where we see him and the more tense sections of it, um, he does, he does need to put in a really good acting performance, and he does, and there is a lot of, intrigue and tension with this character towards the end, and again, I'm being very vague because I don't want to spoil it, but there is some tension towards the end there, and I think so that's him. And then lastly, in terms of like the main cast is Benedict Wong, who like I'm just loving right now because I just watched Three Body Problem, and obviously from the MCU stuff. I'm watching him in something else right now, but I can't remember what it was. Anyway, he's really good just generally, but in this movie, he's great. A lot of the movie, it's like a very basic thing. Like he's kind of a very simple character. You don't think he's going to factor into the plot very much, but something happens later on, like towards the middle of the movie, that reveals a lot about the mystery and like the how do I put this without spoiling it? The what kind of leads to why the kids run out of the classroom is kind of unpacked with Benedict Wong's character and at a certain point and kind of how he ends up interacting with Julia Garner's character and Josh Brolin's character. And I think that is in the trailers a little bit. You see like his face bloodied up. That's what I'm talking about, and you'll see what the context is for that if you see the movie. But again, that's like a he has to portray like a really genuine anger and like disgust, and that is obviously really hard to portray on screen, and he does it really well. So I think those four as like a main cast, and then you have two characters that I can't really talk about too much without getting the spoilers, so I will in that section. But besides from them, like those four make up our main cast, and they are all really good and really stand out. And Julie Garner specifically is just really getting up there as one of my favorite, up and coming actresses in the industry right now. And yeah, I think past that as like a main positive and really what it is the mystery is so intriguing because it's slowly impact and it's like every chapter that we get with each character, we don't only learn a little bit about their character and their motivations, but we also learn we get a layer peeled off of the mystery and slowly build towards that. And just everything about that was just it was right up my alley with the way the story was told. And I just was so intrigued and so blown away and so impressed by the way that Cregger was able to tell the story. And I guess we can get into that from next positive is Zach Cregger, who is the director and writer of this movie. And obviously, I think he's known. Well, the only movie that he's really known for is Barbarian, which came out a couple years ago and was kind of his breakout, movie. I still haven't seen that. I'm gonna see that because I've seen this movie and I've liked it. So I can't really speak on that and how it compares to Weapons. I'm sure that's what a lot of people are doing right now. But with his direction for this movie and his writing for this movie, I've kind of already touched on his writing, for his screenplay because I just think it was a brilliant job of building up this story and making all the cast members have equal importance and roles and casting the right people, which probably speaks to the casting director more than him, but still, and making the mystery interesting and bringing in like a really unpredictable story. All of that was great. And then with his direction, there's a lot of very careful shots in here that really help emphasize the horror and scary moments because this isn't like an all-time horror movie in the sense that like it's not it is like for me it is an all-time horror movie in terms of the quality, but in terms of like the scares and the actual horror elements of it, it doesn't have a huge amount. There's a lot of like creepy and body horror, not body horror moments. I'm still thinking of my Together review, but there's a lot of creepy and like gross moments in this movie, specifically with the conclusion, like the kind of the final scene, and anyone who's seen it knows exactly what I'm talking about. But there's not like a lot of there's not a lot of huge horror moments in this, but when there is jump scares, when there is horror elements, he directs them really well and he directs them in a very careful way. And I really liked his direction in this movie. There's a lot of tracking shots in there, which are really well shot. I think there's a couple in there with Garner's character that I'm thinking of specifically. And just generally, like there's a lot of scenes where like this was an outstanding horror or theater experience for me. I watched this. This came out on Friday. Not this is a couple weeks ago now, but I think it came out on August 8th, and I saw it, which is a Friday, and then I saw it the Monday after, or no, the Tuesday after actually. And even with that, like this was, and you'd expect, with the original horror movie, that the theater experience wouldn't be crazy, but this was like a great theater experience. My theater was almost completely sold out, which again, I've said this before, but like the theater that I go to when I'm home, which is right now, is it's an AMC and it's pretty small and it's not very popular. It's in kind of a random area. So most of the time when I go see movies, and even if they're on opening weekend or they're, kind of the first couple of days they're out, unless it's like a big action blockbuster like a Marvel movie or Mission Impossible or stuff like that, or like Wicked last year. If it's not something like that, usually I won't get a sold out crowd. But for this movie in Weapons, the theater was basically completely sold out, which is great to see people supporting original horror. But completely sold out, and like there were multiple scenes where everyone was like ooh ah, like everyone was freaking out, people behind me were like screaming because they were getting scared by the jump scares. So yeah, it was a great theater experience, and I think that speaks a lot to the direction and writing of Cregger for this movie, because he really allowed for the tension to build in a lot of scenes, and by the way he shot it. And I think some of the scare, I think I just feel this way kind of generally about horror since I've kind of got more into it, is that I'm never really super like taken aback by like a scare or a jump scare. I do get scared by them because I'm a little jumpy, but I think generally in horror movies I'm never really sold by the jump scares, and I see them coming from a mile away. So I'm not gonna use that as a complaint for this movie, but that was kind of an element that was in my head. But that's not a complaint for this movie because again that's just how I feel personally. But yeah, Krager's direction and storytelling was so good for this movie, and I think one of the last positives I have is that I could talk about this movie for hours, and again, it's so good. It's so creative. The concept, everything about it is so good, and I think I need to kind of save a little bit of it for the spoiler section. And also, again, my voice is going all that. I can't have this episode be as long as it probably usually would be, but I think with this movie, I could talk about it for a long time. There's a lot of positives in it, but the ones I've said so far are the main ones. But also, this movie is surprisingly like hilarious, and I think I had seen that in a couple of reviews that came out in the days before I saw this movie from either friends or just critics online. So I kind of expected it, but like there's so many absolutely comical moments in this movie, and a lot of them have to do with Austin Abrams' character, who's like a little bit of like a teen junkie. I mean, I don't really know. I know he's in Euphoria and all that, and there's a couple other movies that he's become a popular actor from. This is the first thing I've seen him in, and he was another good guy. I don't think his acting performance really required as much as the other ones, which is why I didn't mention him in that kind of cast praise that I just did. But when it comes to his character, so like that's why he had a good performance, but like not as good as the other ones. But when it comes to his character, there's just so many hilarious and comical moments, specifically with Eldenrick's character. And it's funny because he does so much out of all the characters in this movie and all the smart characters and all the characters that have an emotional investment in the kids and all that. Out of all of them, he is the one that like brings us towards the mystery and kind of leads us towards figuring out what happened. And um, it's just the way it unfolds is so funny. And there's a scene towards the end with him and Josh Brolin that literally had me in tears. It was so like you wouldn't expect for the climax of a horror movie to have everyone laughing and kind of crying their eyes out with how funny it is. And that's what we had in Weapons, and that might like pull a couple people out of this and make people not enjoy it as much. But for me, I didn't mind it at all, and I kind of appreciated it. In fact, like seeing a lot of humor in a horror movie like this, which is so serious. And again, that scene with him and Josh Brolin towards the end, maybe I'll talk about it again in spoilers, like literally just bang, 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 just so many funny moments back to back to back. Again, when this intense thing is happening in the movie, and I just think that, you know what? I know it's a horror movie and maybe people don't want the humor out of it, but I really liked it. So that's another positive, is that how funny it was and how funny they make it, and a lot of the moments in it, and a lot of moments with each of the characters are very funny. There's a lot of funny moments with Garner's character too, which again you wouldn't expect, but that is the fact of the matter is there's a lot of funny moments out of that section. So to wrap it up, again, to wrap up this non-spoiler section, again, if you appreciate creative and original storytelling, and this is a very similar sentiment that I said when Sinners came out, if you appreciate original and creative storytelling, even if you're not the biggest horror fan, even if you're not the biggest movie fan, and you don't go out to see movies in theaters every week like I do, please go see Weapons because it is so, so good. And another thing that I was worried about, not really worried about, but another thing I was thinking going into this movie is, will the conclusion be satisfying? And will they wrap up the story and the mystery in a way that is like very tense and good and satisfying? And they do. And they do really. I think I heard a couple people had a problem with the ending, that they maybe appreciated the. I think 3C Films said that he appreciated the journey more than the ending, and I do understand that take and I do respect that take, but for me, it was both were great. Like again, the way it ends is actually like pretty humorous, and it's not like this huge dramatic moment, which, maybe part of me, and maybe on a rewatch, I would think like I would have appreciated it more if um maybe I would have appreciated it more if there was more of a like tense, emotional ending. And there is like with the last shot and stuff like that, but in terms of like the what happens before that and how this whole thing wraps up, again, I'm being super vague because I can't say anything, but how this whole thing wraps up, I know that people probably, it makes sense people would appreciate like it to be more tense, but still, I thought the ending was great and satisfying and like definitely like literally people in my theater were cheering when that last scene happened. Like, and again, if you've seen, exactly what I'm talking about. Like, literally, people were standing up and cheering and laughing when this movie, kind of started to wrap up. And I did think the conclusion very satisfying. And again, if you like creative movies, this is like by far one of the most creative concepts I've ever seen. And sometimes when you get those creative concepts, they never go well in execution. They just sound better based on a trailer or a script. But with weapons, like they maximize the output of this concept so much, and it was so good. Good. I cannot say enough good words about this movie. And it is sitting there at number three out of my 2025 movie list. New releases in 2025, only behind Sinners and Fantastic Four. And again, it could be up there with those. I think Sinners is like in its own galaxy, but it could be interchangeable with a lot of things up there. So again, my number three movie of the year. It's kind of sitting up there with a lot of big action movies, and it's hard to compare it with those kind of other ones like Mission Impossible, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Ballerina, Superman, like stuff like that. But it gets ahead of most of those movies because of how creative it is. And again, this has been such a good year for original horror movies, and it even together is in the conversation too. And again, I'm not a horror fan. I don't think I ever will be as big a horror fan as some people that are on this platform, and just on and are movie critics and just movie fans. But this year, specifically with Sinners and Weapons now, has pushed me towards being a fan of horror more than any other year has and any other thing could be. So I really appreciate that. And with both Sinners and this Weapons now doing really well at the box office, like I'm so happy to see people going out and watching movies like this because the more we support, like I'm not saying don't support the Mission Impossibles of the world and the Fantastic Fours of the world. I'm not saying that, but the more people that see these movies, the more movies we'll get like this with incredibly creative concepts and directions and all that. So again, please go out and see this movie if you haven't already. I promise you it'll be worth it. It is so good. You'll be on the edge of your seat. You'll be scared. You'll laugh. You'll do all that kind of stuff. And there's also a lot of emotional moments in this too. Like again, that has to do with the character that I can't really talk about yet, and you'll know who I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But there is a couple moments in this movie, and like the story, the mystery itself is pretty devastating when you learn like what actually happened. And yeah, I can't really go into much more of that spoiler, so I'm probably gonna end the non-spoiler section here. But yeah, go see Weapons if you haven't already. It's at number three in my 2025 list. And yeah, I'm gonna pause here so you can click off if you haven't seen the movie yet. I'm gonna get into spoilers right now. Okay, so spoiler section now. Again, click off if you have not seen this movie. Um, so throughout that non-spoiler section, if you listen to that, you heard that I was talking a lot about these two characters that I couldn't talk about in non-spoilers, which would be Aunt Gladys and what's the kid's Alex? Aunt Gladys and Alex, both of them are kind of the characters that are not really portrayed as having big. I don't think Gladys is even in the trailers at all. And I think Alex probably is at some point, but you couldn't identify that he's kind of a main part in the story. And I think those are the two that out of like the ones that are not in main cast are really huge standouts. And I guess I'm trying to. I should have, before I did this, I should have looked up the actor for Aunt Gladys because I can't remember her name. So I'm going to do that right now. Aunt Gladys actor is Amy Madigan. So Amy Madigan is the actor that plays Aunt Gladys, who is obviously the mastermind behind all these events and the person who has caused all the kids to leave and Benedict Wong's character to do what he did and Julie Garner's character to almost die at the hands of Josh Brolin, like just crazy ending there. But she is really good. I mean, she portrays this really creepy villain and character, and I think I'm glad they didn't really show her at all in the trailers because there's one scene early on where she shows up. I think it's the scene where she's in the office with Benedict Wong. And although by her appearance you're like, okay, what is up with this lady? Like, she's weird. Like, what is going on with her? You still like slowly start throughout the scene, and it also speaks to Benedict's acting as well. But from Amy Madigan's side, you slowly start to see like this something is not right here. Something is off with this lady, and it kind of uh materialize itself once she goes to his house and all that. Another crazy scene. So many just crazy tense action, like not action back, but crazy tense scenes in this. Like so good acting, directing, storytelling, all of it so good. But she obviously. Her character also requires a very precise performance and a really creepy performance. And although I don't really know a lot about her as an actor, she was very talented. She's very talented, clearly, and did a really good job with this character and is worthy of a lot of praise. And I think she deserves that praise. And I think obviously reports have come out after this movie is released that Zach Cregger is like thinking about developing a prequel where they show her backstory and how she kind of made her way to this town, and how she kind of figured out all this mystical stuff in the movie. And I don't like that's like maybe a discussion for another day, and maybe I'll like write an article about it or something. But I don't think that's totally necessary because I think what works so much in this movie with Aunt Gladys is that she is mysterious, and there's no scene of her like stumbling upon this magical well and she finds this demon who tells her, "Oh, if you snap branches, they'll go." Like there's none of that. There's part of the intrigue about her character is because we don't know what her motivations are. We don't know where she came from. We don't know until, kind of the story unfolds. And even when it does, there's still a lot of like, what is going on with this lady? What is wrong with her? Why is she deteriorating? All this stuff. So first of all, I'm glad that it because apparently they considered doing that. Maybe it's been shot. I don't know, but apparently they considered doing that in this movie and having a chapter for her, which I wouldn't have hated, but I do think it would have messed up the pacing a little bit. I think that this movie was the right amount of runtime, and I think again the reason her character works so much is because of that intrigue and because we don't know her backstory. So yeah, I think the if a prequel is worth it or not is a discussion for another day. Maybe I'll do that once the movie it has a longer kind of release window and I can talk about spoilers more freely. But I think with her character, bottom line, she was really good, and I'm glad they took those storytelling choices with her to not tell her backstory. And again, she is just the way she's so like unbothered, and like especially in the scene where she goes into to Wong's house. It's so weird saying Wong because his MCU character is named Wong too. So it's just, but anyway, I think that that scene where she goes into Benedict Wong's character's house and Benedict Wong, his husband's house. I don't know the actor who played his husband. I apologize, but um like she's just so unbothered in the way she kind of forces her way in and it shows how she's made it this far and how she's kind of uh how she's I guess not how she's intrigued the kids because the kids kind of are they ran out of their houses because of what Alex did, but with taking the name tags. But I think she's just the way she's so unbothered with things, the way she's so like reassuring and all that, and the way kind of things snap at the last moment. And again, like the moment at the end where she ends up literally getting pulled apart by the kids, is a comical moment because like this old lady that has done everything to retain like her life and gain her hair back and her whatever and her health, all of that is hilarious, but also just obviously a really good performance. And again, that satisfying conclusion with her being ripped apart is crazy. Again, my theater was like cheering and all that. And then when it comes to Alex, played by Carrie Christopher, obviously this is like basically his debut role. He's been in a lot of other things, and he's apparently going to be in a couple of comic book things that are coming out next year. I think Spider Noir and the Green Lantern show, which is really interesting, and we'll talk more about that obviously when those get closer. But um, this kid is like, I mean, he's literally a kid. Like this kid he's not a 20-year-old, he's not a 25-year-old. Like this is a kid basically in his debut role, definitely his debut like feature film role. And those other things I mentioned were TV shows. In his first like feature film role, he knocks it out of the park and everything with it. And it's such a devastating story to see like his family just torn apart. Like we get those scenes early on where we see the relationship he has with his dad and his mom and how close they are and how loving they are. And then Aunt Gladys comes in and like literally destroys his life, and he has to watch his parents like stab themselves with forks and like not be able to speak, and like all of this stuff is like so devastating. And like when he towards the end, like he's the one who basically saves everyone because he figures out to wrap the thing and snap it, all of that, snap the branch and all that towards the end, and kind of get his parents out of the hypnotism or whatever. And like it's just so like I was just so happy. Like I was had a big smile on my face the whole time when I like saw what he was doing and see what he was going to do. Again, I just had a big smile on my face. I was so happy that that's the way they went with his character. And again, his acting performance for his age was so good, and so he's so talented. And I have a feeling he's going to be someone who's not like a one hit wonder. I think he'll be around for a while, and once he gets older, we'll be like, oh my God, that's the kid from Weapons, and now he's being nominated for an Oscar. Like I think he literally has that potential. So again, a really good performance from him. And like there wasn't a huge emotional gut punch in the story. It was kind of just more a creative mystery, but still with his character and that moment where he gets to hug his parents at the end, and the moment at the dinner table where he is like, "Dad," and like going like this to his face and telling him to stop and all that. It's really emotional. It gotta be a little emotional. I think on a rewatch, it definitely would be just knowing kind of how the events fold. So yeah, really just amazing acting performance from him, and probably the GOAT character in this movie because he's the one who solves it. And again, like the fact that he was able to, I mean, I'm talking about his character more than the actor here, but the fact that he was able to keep his composure and kind of play the long game, I don't know whether intentional or not, play the long game and figure out in Gladys's motivations and how she does things and, defeating her essentially and, saving the town and reuniting the kids with their fathers. Um, just did like, was again, just made me super happy and was super satisfying. And, there's the emotional gut punch there, and then there's also the last shot of the movie where Brolin gets to be reunited with his son, and I think literally the final shot of the movie is his son looking into the camera, and the narrator's kind of like, well, the kids kind of never able to speak again, but they're reunited with their parents, and I think the implication was that Alex is staying with Julie Garner's character now, Justine. I think that's what I've it's been a little bit since I've seen this, so I'm not totally sharp on that detail. But either way, like although the parents are basically like not able to take care of him anymore after the hypnotism they've been through, it is still good to see that reunion, them reunited, and them in the bathroom hugging and all that. Just really sweet, such a sweet moment. And again, Alex is the goat for that, and Carrie Christopher, outstanding performance. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say for the spoiler section. Again, I got a bad throat problem right now, so I can't talk for as long as maybe I would. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean. I don't think I have anything else that I didn't say in the non-spoiler section. This movie is just so good, and everything about the mystery and the way it's told slowly and slowly. I guess I was gonna say that moment with Josh Brolin like body slamming Austin Abrams' character like over and over again, like literally out of all the movies I've seen this year, that is probably like a top three reaction from the crowd, like laughing so much. It was so funny. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to reference that because I mentioned it earlier. But yeah, just to finish this off, I mean, again, if you like original and creative stories, I know I said this already, but I'm gonna say it again. If you like movies like that have a really creative concept, go watch Weapons. I think you will thoroughly enjoy it. And if you didn't enjoy it, leave in the comments below and let me know what you didn't like about it. I have seen a cut like almost everything that I've seen for this movie has been very overwhelmingly positive in terms of people that I know that have seen it and all that. But I know there is a section of people that didn't really like the split up concept as much and didn't like, the way it was shot, whatever. So if you feel that way, please feel free to leave in the comments and I'll debate you or, kind of just say whatever. But yeah, thank you so much for watching my Weapons review. I'm sure this is a movie that I'll be thinking about for many years to come. And, at the end of the year when I'm doing my best movies from 2025, this will obviously be up there unless we get 10 5 stars the rest of the year, which I don't see happening. So yeah, Weapons, amazing movie, 4.5, my number three release of 2025. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I apologize for being, kind of just lacking with the content recently. After I did the Fantastic Four review, I had my 21st birthday. My work was ramping up. I was working more hours for my summer job. And just generally, I went on vacation a couple times. So just generally, I was really busy. I didn't have time to really make a lot of content. But if you didn't see last week, I did two reviews on the site for both Together and Sorry Baby. Both very good movies. I totally recommend them. Go read the reviews, go watch the movies. And now I have this coming out today, and I might have a review next week for Night Always Comes, which is a Vanessa Kirby Netflix movie. Wasn't totally blown away from it, but I think I have some things to talk about, so I might write a review for that. And yeah, coming up now with the school year starting and the summer being over, although I might be really busy as well, I'm gonna try to get out as many reviews and as many videos and all that as possible, and hopefully breaking news videos, for the MCU, like I used to do a lot more, and I'm gonna try to do that a lot more now. But again, I'm back with a lot of more consistent content now and weekly stuff with videos weekly and reviews weekly or written reviews weekly, hopefully as well. So please check out the content from the channel. Thank you so much for all your support and listening to this episode and all the content. And yeah, I will see you on here unless there's some, I mean, Monday or Tuesday, if there's breaking news, I can't do anything because I'm driving down to school. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I will probably, if there's breaking news, Wednesday, Thursday. If not, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I will see you with a new video, either a review or a just news video or whatever. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you then.